My husband texted me from what I thought was Denver. It was a Tuesday evening in February, and I was eating leftover pad thai at my kitchen counter and half watching a home renovation show when my phone buzzed. All good. Dinner with the team. Might be hard to reach tonight. I typed back K, sleep well, and went back to my show. 40 minutes later, I picked up my phone to check tomorrow's weather. My sister-in-law, Whitney, had just posted a reel to Instagram. 8 seconds of someone walking down a lit outdoor path lined with torches, then a wide shot of an oceanside dinner table, white linen, flower arrangements, the dark Pacific behind it, and the big island of Hawaii unmistakably in the background. My husband, Seth, was sitting in the second chair from the left. He was holding up a Mai Tai and smiling at whoever was holding the camera. I stared at the video for probably 15 seconds. Then I played it again. Then I opened our message thread and read his text from 40 minutes earlier. All good. Dinner with the team. Then I went to Whitney's profile and scrolled back through the last 3 days. She had posted 6 times since Friday. A sunrise hike, a snorkeling trip, a photo at Volcanoes National Park, a group shot at what looked like a resort pool, Seth, his parents Nancy and Dennis, Whitney, and her husband Scott, all 5 of them holding drinks and squinting into the afternoon sun. Her caption on that one read, "Finally got mom and dad to the Big Island. Bucket list, check." Someone in the comments had already asked, "Where's Allison?" Whitney had responded with a laughing emoji and typed, "She's a workaholic. We'd need a crowbar to get her out of the office." I put my phone face down on the counter. Then I picked it back up and looked at the resort pool photo again. I was not on vacation. I was eating leftover Thai food alone in my kitchen in Phoenix, believing my husband was at a 3-day real estate conference in Denver. I did not call him. I opened my credit card app instead. My name is Allison. I was 38 that February, and I worked as a senior operations manager for a healthcare staffing company in Scottsdale. Seth was 41, a commercial real estate broker. We had been married for 7 years. We owned a 4-bedroom house in a good school district that we had chosen optimistically and now filled with a guest room, a home office each, and a gym we used about 4 times a month combined. Our finances were what I would have called, before Hawaii, mostly practical. We had a joint checking account for the mortgage, utilities, groceries, and shared household expenses. We each had our own individual accounts for personal spending. 2 years earlier, because Seth traveled often for work and we frequently booked trips together, I had added him as an authorized user on my Chase Sapphire Reserve card. It had a strong travel rewards program and no foreign transaction fees. He had his own card with his name on it. Every charge, though, came back to my account. That arrangement had worked fine until the night I was sitting alone in my kitchen in February. The first charge I recognized was a hotel, 4 Seasons Resort Hualalai, 4 nights, $9,400. Below that, a private snorkeling tour booked through a local outfitter, $820. Then a helicopter volcano tour, $1,400. Restaurant charges I didn't recognize. A spa treatment, an activities desk charge for something called a private sunset sale. 2 boutique charges from what looked like a resort gift shop. I scrolled for a long time. When I added up everything I could see, posted charges and pending holds, the number was already past $26,000. They still had 2 nights left. I sat with that number for a moment. Then I remembered something Seth had asked me about 10 days earlier. We had been cleaning up after dinner, and he had looked up from loading the dishwasher and said, almost like an afterthought, "Hey, is your travel card still working okay? I've been having weird issues with mine on bigger purchases." I had said yes without thinking much about it. I was tired. I had a quarterly review the next morning. It had not occurred to me to ask why a man supposedly attending a domestic conference in Denver would need to know about a card that waived international transaction fees. Now I understood. This trip had been built around my credit from the beginning. Seth's card probably had a much lower available limit. Mine had $40,000 in available credit and a reward structure that made it the obvious choice for a resort stay. I called Chase and had Seth's authorized user card frozen. I blocked new charges. I changed my account password and removed the card from the Apple Wallet linked to his phone. Then I took screenshots of every transaction I could see and emailed them to my personal Gmail account. It was 10:15 at night. At 10:40, Seth called. Allison. His voice had that particular tightness that meant he already knew something was wrong. Did something happen with the card? Yes. What happened? I froze it. Silence. Then why would you do that? We're still here. We're still here. Not I'm at the conference. Not I'm in Denver. The geography had already shifted. Where is here, Seth? He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice had changed. Queeter, you saw the Instagram. Whitney tagged your location and posted a reel and several photos. Allison. You told me you were in Denver. He exhaled. I'll explain when I get home. Can you just turn the card back on for now? The hotel still has an open authorization, and my parents were going to do a luau dinner tomorrow night. Use your own card. Mine doesn't have enough room for the hold they need. Then do something smaller. Allison. He dropped his voice into that particular register, the one that was supposed to sound like calm, but was really just pressure. My mom really wanted this trip. She's been talking about Hawaii for years. Dad's knee has been bad, and they don't know how much longer he can do something like this. I was trying to do something for them. On my card. We're married. It's our money. I leaned back in my chair. Did you ask me if I wanted to go? He went quiet. Seth, did you ask me? No. Did Whitney? No. Did your mother? Nothing. Then you don't know whether I wanted to go. You decided for me. You decided I wouldn't come. And then you charged $26,000 to my credit card to cover a trip I wasn't invited on. It wasn't like that. Tell me what it was like. I'll explain everything when I get home. I'm not turning the card back on. He said nothing. Then he said it. The sentence that settled everything. I knew if I told you, you'd want to talk about the budget and it would turn into a whole thing, and my mom would get upset and... I stopped listening around. Talk about the budget. He had not made an impulsive decision. He had not forgotten to ask me. He had thought it through, looked at the situation, weighed his options, and decided it was easier to lie to me than to have a conversation his mother might not enjoy. He had run the calculation and determined that I was the least expensive person to disappoint. I said use your own card and hung up. Whitney texted me 11 minutes later. Hey Allison, is there an issue with the bank? Seth says his card got declined trying to authorize the luau. I typed back one sentence. The card isn't having an issue. I froze it. She replied, but that's the card you guys share? I wrote, was the trip something we were sharing, too? She didn't respond. Here is what I knew about myself by the time Seth walked through the front door 3 days later. I had been very good, for a very long time, at making things work. We had been together since I was 30, and he was 33. In the beginning, that balance felt natural. I was organized, he was spontaneous. I planned ahead, he figured things out as he went. We thought we complemented each other. Over 7 years, that dynamic had calcified into something less romantic. I handled the budget. I tracked the joint account. I reminded Seth about his parents' birthdays, researched gift ideas, made reservations for family dinners, managed the holiday logistics. When Seth's father Dennis had a health scare 2 years ago and needed a procedure that their insurance under-reimbursed, I covered most of the gap. About $3,000, without making it a big conversation. When Whitney and Scott got married, and Seth had a slow commission quarter, I covered the bulk of our wedding gift. For the past 3 years, Seth and I had been sending his parents $700 a month to help offset their retirement costs. Most of that money came from transfers I made into the joint account, because Seth's individual account ran close to empty more often than not. Seth was not underpaid. He had good years in commercial real estate. He just spent his income on his own life and treated my income as the backstop for everything else. When the joint account dipped, I moved money over. When a family need came up, I covered it. When Seth told his parents we're handling it, or we'll take care of it, the we almost always meant me. I had never corrected him. I thought that was what partnership looked like. I thought I was choosing generosity. After Hawaii, I started wondering whether I had just been choosing to make myself easier to take for granted. Seth came home on a Thursday evening. He looked tired but not particularly remorseful, more like someone who had been steeling himself for an argument he had rehearsed on the plane. He put his suitcase down in the hall. There was a resort gift shop bag hooked over one arm. He set it on the counter. "I got you macadamia nuts and some Kona coffee." "I know that's not. I just thought I should bring something back." I looked at the bag. I thought about $26,000. I left the bag on the counter. He pulled out a kitchen chair and sat across from me. His first sentence was, "I know I messed up." "Tell me how it started," I said. "What?" "The planning. When did you start booking it?" He looked at the table. "About 2 months ago." "So you've had 2 months to tell me?" "Yes." "And your reasoning for not telling me was what you said on the phone. That I'd want to talk about the budget." He rubbed the back of his neck. "That's a simplification." "Then give me the full version." He was quiet for a moment. "My mom has wanted to go to Hawaii for years. She and my dad are getting older. Dad's knee isn't great. Whitney had the same week open in February. Everything lined up, and I knew." He stopped, started again. "I knew that if I brought it up, you'd want to budget it out carefully. And an honest budget for 5 people at a nice resort in Hawaii is not a comfortable conversation. So I thought if I planned it, got everyone excited, and then told you after the fact, it would just be easier." "Easier for who?" He didn't answer. "Seth, I've helped fund your parents' retirement for 3 years. I covered your dad's medical shortfall. I paid for most of Whitney's wedding gift. I have never once refused to contribute to your family. You could have come to me and said, 'I want to do something meaningful for my parents.' I would have had that conversation with you. It might have looked different from what you spent, but I would have had it." "I know. Instead you told me you were in Denver." He met my eyes for the first time. "I know, the lying was wrong. I'm not defending that." "Then defend the card." "What?" I slid the printed statement across the table. He looked at the total, $27,342, and something in his expression shifted. I don't think he had added it all up before that moment. The Four Seasons room was almost $10,000. The helicopter tour was $1,400. There are spa charges on here, boutique charges, 2 rounds of resort activities. Individually, these things look like vacation spending. Together, they are $27,000 on my credit card, for a trip I did not know about, to a destination I was not asked to join. I tapped the page. "Show me one charge that was for me." He said nothing. "Show me one charge I approved." He pressed his lips together. "Their family," he finally said. Something cold and very clear settled in me. "Yes. And apparently when the trip was being planned, I wasn't." He flinched slightly. "That's not fair." "Find me the line that's unfair and I'll reconsider." I pushed the statement a little closer. "You're paying this back, all of it." "Allison, my parents spent money too. Whitney and Scott." "Who put the hotel on my card?" He looked away. "Who authorized the activities package?" Silence. "Who told me he was going to Denver?" He stood up slowly, walked to the window, stood there with his back to me. "I don't have $27,000 sitting in my account right now." "Then you'll make payments, over time." He turned around. "You want me to write my wife checks for a vacation?" "I want you to repay a charge you made, without my knowledge or consent. What you call it is up to you." He slept in the guest room that night. I lay in our bed and stared at the ceiling and tried to figure out what exactly I was most angry about. Around 2 in the morning I had narrowed it down. It wasn't the money, or not entirely. It was that he had thought this through. He had looked at the situation from every angle, and concluded that I was the person it was acceptable to lie to. That I would be upset but not disruptive. That I would eventually come around. That the cost of telling me the truth was higher than the cost of deceiving me. He had calculated that I was manageable. And the thing was, he had not been entirely wrong. For 7 years, I had been very manageable. That week, I made 3 changes. First, I permanently removed Seth as an authorized user on my card. I told him in a short text. He did not reply for several hours. Second, I redirected my direct deposit. My salary had been flowing mostly into the joint checking account, with a smaller portion into my own savings. I reversed that. Going forward, my paycheck would go into my individual account first, I would transfer my calculated share of our joint expenses: mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance, property costs. Based on our income split, I still earned more than Seth, so I still contributed more. But the assumption that my entire income was available for whatever came up was finished. Third, I called my best friend Gwen and told her everything. She listened without interrupting, which is one of the things I love about her. When I finished, she said, "Tell me the resort name." I told her. She looked it up and said, "Okay, he's paying that back." Then she said, "When he does, we're going somewhere." The family dinner happened about 10 days after Seth got home. Nancy and Dennis and Whitney and Scott came over on a Sunday. I had not refused when Seth asked if it was okay. I also had not spent the day cooking. I ordered from a barbecue place we all liked, transferred everything into serving dishes, and let Seth handle the drinks. Nancy walked in, looked at the counter, and said, "Oh, is it a catered thing tonight?" With the small tone of someone who had expected more effort, I said, "Easier week," and handed her a glass of wine. Dinner started calmly enough. Scott talked about a work project. Dennis asked Seth about current listings. Nancy asked me how things were going at work. And when I said busy, she said, "You really do work constantly. I don't know how you keep it up." She said it the way people say things. They mean as compliments, but that lands slightly sideways. Whitney showed me a photo on her phone from the trip. A sunset from their lanai, orange and pink over the water. "It was just gorgeous," she said. "You'd love it, Allison. Maybe next time we can all go together." She said it with the ease of someone who did not understand what all had come to mean in this conversation. Nancy reached over and patted Seth's arm. "Did you tell her about the pearl shop? I found the most beautiful earrings. I almost picked up a pair for you, Allison, but Seth said you're particular about jewelry." She smiled at me warmly. "We thought about you." I said that's kind and left it there. Nancy smoothed her napkin. "I hope you're not still carrying hard feelings over all of this." Seth mentioned there was some confusion with the card. "These things happen with travel sometimes." She looked at me, with the expression of someone offering a gracious off-ramp. "The important thing is that we made wonderful memories together. You really can't put a price on family time." I put my fork down. "Actually," I said, "you can. Someone did." The table went quiet. Nancy looked at Seth. Seth looked at the table. I reached to the chair beside me and picked up the folder I had prepared before they arrived. Old habit. I placed the credit card statement in the center of the table. $27,342. Nancy stared at the number. Dennis's jaw shifted. Whitney looked at her water glass. "That's the final total for the trip," I said. "I want to make sure we're all working from the same information." "Allison," Seth said quietly. "No, I think this is useful." I looked at Nancy. "You said you can't put a price on family time. I agree with that. But someone did put a price on this specific trip, and they put it on my credit card without my knowledge, so I'd like the number to be visible." I placed a second page on the table. "This is what we've sent you and Dennis in monthly support over the last 3 years. $25,200. Almost all of it came from transfers I made into our joint account." I placed another page beside it. "This is the shortfall from Dennis's procedure 2 years ago that we helped cover." I covered most of it. Another page. "This is the wedding gift we gave Whitney and Scott. Seth was short that commission cycle." I covered the balance. Whitney's face went red. "What are you doing right now?" "Putting numbers in one place, that's all." I looked around the table. I'm not saying any of this to relitigate old generosity. I gave that money willingly. I gave it because I considered myself part of this family. But Nancy, you told Seth the trip would be easier without me. And Seth looked me in the face and said Denver. So I'm sitting here trying to understand which version of family I am. The one who gets excluded from the planning, or the one who gets included in the billing. Nobody spoke. Scott stared at his plate. Dennis cleared his throat. Nancy's expression moved through several things before settling into something tight and controlled. Seth stood up. "I think we should take a breath." "I'm almost done," I said. I slid a new budget summary toward him. "Our shared household expenses stay as they are, split based on income. Any additional support you want to give your parents comes from your personal account going forward. And this," I touched the statement, "is still your responsibility to repay. All of it." Nancy found her voice. He's your husband. You don't make a husband pay his wife back like she's a creditor. You told me 5 minutes ago that you can't put a price on family. I looked at her directly. If there's no separation between Seth's money and mine, then Seth repaying this card is just our household paying its own debt, isn't it? Which is it, Nancy? She opened her mouth. Nothing came out that went anywhere. Seth walked into the living room. Dennis followed quietly. Whitney pulled Scott toward the kitchen. The dinner was effectively over. Nobody touched the peach cobbler I'd set on the counter. After they left, Seth came back to the dining table. He looked drained. You planned that. I prepared for it, yes. You humiliated me in front of my family. I showed your family a document. I started stacking plates. The part that humiliated you is that the numbers are real. He was quiet for a long moment. What do you want from me, Allison? I thought about it, honestly. I want you to understand that I had become the easiest person to disappoint in this marriage. Every time there was a choice between telling your mother something she didn't want to hear and running the cost through me, you chose me. Because I was manageable. Because I had spent 7 years making sure I was. I looked at him. I'm not doing that anymore. He made the first payment 2 weeks later. He sold a set of golf clubs he hadn't used in a year, postponed a car upgrade he'd been planning since spring, and put a large portion of his next commission check toward the balance. He called Whitney and had a conversation I was not part of. I didn't ask about it and he didn't offer details, but a few days later, a Venmo notification showed $4,300 transferred from her to him. His parents covered the hotel upgrade charge and a portion of the activities. The balance shrank over the next several months, and then one morning in September, Seth came into the kitchen and held his phone out to me. Zero balance. Done, he said. The bill is done, I said. He understood the distinction. Things changed in ways I had not fully anticipated. Once Seth was living inside his own financial reality. His share of the mortgage, his share of utilities and groceries and insurance, the money he wanted to keep sending his parents, plus the monthly repayment, something shifted in how he moved through ordinary life. He started cooking more on weeknights. He remembered his parents' anniversary without any input from me. He called his mother on a random Tuesday for no reason, had a conversation I had nothing to do with, and came away from it looking lighter. The first real test came 2 months after the family dinner. Nancy's birthday was in April. I said nothing in advance. The morning of her birthday, Seth came out of the shower, checked his phone, and went very still. He spent 40 minutes calling restaurants. He found a table at a nice Italian place on the other side of town, ordered flowers sent to his parents' house, and picked up a gift card to a garden center Nancy had mentioned wanting to visit. He did all of it himself, from start to finish. That evening he came home and said quietly, "You didn't say anything." "She's your mother." He nodded slowly. "You reminded me every year for 7 years." "I know." He stood in the kitchen for a moment, looking at the counter. "I didn't notice that until you stopped." That was the most honest observation he'd made in a long time. We started seeing a marriage counselor in March. Seth suggested it, which genuinely surprised me. In our first session, the counselor asked each of us to describe in one sentence why we were there. Seth said, "We had a serious breach of trust around a family vacation." I said, "The vacation made it impossible to ignore a pattern we'd both been living with for years." The counselor looked at me. "What pattern?" I thought for a moment. I had become the path of least resistance for every hard decision in this marriage. And the longer that went on, the more everyone, including Seth, stopped noticing that it was costing me something. Seth didn't argue with that description. It became the center of most of our sessions. Not Hawaii, not the credit card statement. The structure underneath it. The way my reliability had been converted into a standing resource. The way I had confused doing everything with being valued. The way being easy to rely on had slowly made me easier to overlook. The counselor asked Seth once, "What did you think would happen when Allison found out?" He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I thought she'd be angry. We'd fight. I'd apologize. And eventually things would go back to how they were." The counselor said, "And what did how they were look like?" Seth looked at his hands. "Her managing everything, I guess. Like always." The room went quiet. He added, I didn't think of it that way when I was in it. But when you say it out loud, that's exactly what it was. That was the first session I left, feeling something other than exhausted. In August, I finally used a week of vacation I had been accumulating for almost 2 years. My manager had been telling me to take it for months, so I texted Gwen. Ready for that trip? She responded in under 5 minutes. Where are we going? I said. Hawaii. She called me immediately to work out the details. We booked 2 economy seats and found a condo rental on the Big Island with good reviews and a lanai that looked out over the water. Not a resort, just a well-located place with a working kitchen and a coffee maker I used every morning at sunrise. I did research, because I genuinely enjoy research, and I made a list of things I wanted to see, but I kept it loose. We had no fixed itinerary for most days. One morning, we slept until 9 and spent the rest of the morning drinking coffee outside, watching the light change over the water. One afternoon, we changed our plans because we drove past a farmer's market and both of us decided that was more interesting than what we had scheduled. One evening, we sat on a black sand beach and watched the sky cycle through about 8 different colors during sunset, and did not do anything useful at all. Somewhere in the middle of that week, I realized I was genuinely rested. Not performing rest. Not going through the motions of vacations while running calculations in the background about everyone else's experience. Actually present. Gwen and I drove to Volcanoes National Park on our 3rd day. She had her camera out, moving slowly, taking her time with the lava fields. I was standing at an overlook, watching steam rise from somewhere deep in the earth when she came to stand beside me and said, Are you thinking about the Instagram photo? I knew exactly which one she meant. The resort pool, 5 people with drinks. Bucket list, check. A little, I said. Still angry? I thought about it honestly. Not the same way. What way then? I watched the steam rising. I spent a lot of years thinking that if I was reliable enough, organized enough, generous enough, I would eventually stop being someone who could be left out. Like I could make myself so useful that exclusion would become logistically impossible. I paused. That's not how it works. Gwen was quiet beside me. You can't earn your way into belonging, I said. And you can't make yourself indispensable enough that people stop having to actively choose you. They either choose you or they don't. No amount of birthday reminders and covered shortfalls changes that calculation. She took a photo of the horizon and didn't say anything, which was the right response. On our last night, we found a restaurant near the harbor that didn't take reservations and had a short menu, all fish, all good. We sat outside and ate too much and talked for 3 hours. At some point, Gwen looked at me across the and said, You seem different. Different how? Like you're actually here. I thought about all the family vacations where I had been physically present and mentally somewhere else. Tracking the group itinerary, watching the budget, smoothing over friction, running background calculations as about who needed what and when. I had been the invisible infrastructure of a lot of experiences that other people simply got to enjoy. This one was mine. Seth and I are still married. We did not return to what we had before Hawaii. I did not want to. What we had before Hawaii required me to function as a system that processed everyone else's needs quietly and without friction. And the only way it could continue was if nobody looked at it too carefully. Seth has looked at it now, so have I. He is learning how to be a husband who does not treat my steadiness as a standing resource. I am learning not to mistake managing everything for being loved. Some people, when I've shared pieces of this story, ask why I stayed. I understand the question. The card, the lie, the deliberate calculation behind both. Any one of those things might have been enough for someone else. I stayed because I wanted to know if the remorse was real, or just the discomfort of consequence. I gave it time. Some of what I found was real. But honestly, the reason I stayed was also for myself. Not for Seth. Not for the marriage as an abstract thing worth preserving. For the version of myself I wanted to be on the other side of it. I did not want to leave having only confirmed that I had been taken for granted. I wanted to understand why I had made it so easy, what I had been confusing for generosity, and what it actually looks like to give from somewhere that doesn't quietly hollow you out. The woman who did all of it, who answered every call, remembered every birthday, moved every dollar, smoothed every rough edge, and privately absorbed every cost so that everyone else could stay comfortable. She was good at a lot of things. She kept a lot of things running. She made a lot of people's lives easier, without them ever having to notice how much work that was. But she was not going to get herself to Hawaii. I did.